I shouldn't have pretended to sleep. That's the truth. I tell myself I did it for the company, for security, for leadership. But if I'm honest, I did it because I don't trust people anymore, especially men who move quietly in the dark. My name is Evelyn Harper. I'm the CEO of Harper Industries. I built this company from my father's ashes in a conference table no one thought I deserved to sit at. And tonight at 2:47 a.m. I decided to test a janitor. I sat alone in conference room C on the 53rd floor. Lights dimmed. Body still. Eyes closed just enough to see through my lashes. Noah Brooks. 34. Night shift. Widower. 1 child. Invisible to everyone. Except me. He pushed his card in with careful silence. The kind of silence that comes from knowing you don't belong in powerful rooms. He saw me. Paused. I felt it, that moment of decision. Would he leave, wake me? Take advantage? Instead, he stepped closer. Slowly. I kept my breathing steady, but my heart was racing. He didn't touch anything at first. Didn't clean. Didn't move. And then, I felt fabric settle over my shoulders. A jacket. Warm. Still carrying his body heat. You shouldn't fall asleep up here, he whispered. His voice wasn't bitter. It wasn't mocking. It was gentle. Glass towers get cold at night. My chest tightened. No one had spoken to me gently in years. Then he said something that cracked straight through my armor. I couldn't keep her warm, he murmured almost to himself. But I can keep you warm. I won't let it happen again. I stopped breathing. He wasn't talking to me. He was talking to someone he lost. And suddenly, I didn't feel powerful. I felt seen, and that terrified me. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't want to test him anymore. I wanted to understand him. And that was dangerous. Because the moment you start caring about someone beneath you, you risk losing control. And I had built my entire empire on control. So why did his whisper feel like the first honest thing in this building? And why did I suddenly want him to stay? I didn't open my eyes. I should have. I should have sat up, thanked him, returned the jacket, restored the distance. But I stayed still, because I wanted to hear more. That was my first mistake. He stepped back after placing the jacket around me. I heard the soft rattle of his cleaning cart, the spray bottle, the cloth against glass. Careful, respectful. He worked around me like I mattered. Not like I was his boss. Not like I was a symbol. Like I was human. You're running too much power up here. He murmured quietly, almost like he was thinking out loud. Empty floors shouldn't hum like that. My stomach tightened. How did he notice that? Executives walk these halls every day and see nothing but numbers. He noticed a hum. He moved toward the window. I could feel him studying the skyline reflection. They think nobody's watching, he whispered. That's how people get hurt. That word, hurt. It didn't belong in corporate language, and yet it sounded more honest than any boardroom speech I'd given. I finally opened my eyes. Who got hurt? I asked. He froze. Slowly he turned. There was no guilt on his face, no embarrassment, just surprise. You weren't asleep, he said. No. Silence stretched between us. He didn't apologize, didn't explain, didn't scramble like most employees would when caught speaking freely near the CEO. He simply nodded once. Sorry if I overstepped. You didn't, I said quietly. He studied me then. Not my suit, not my title.
Me.
You shouldn't be up here alone this late, he said calmly. Not with systems running like that. I almost laughed. You're worried about me? Yes. No hesitation. That shook me. No one worries about the CEO. They fear her. They impress her. They use her. But they don't worry. You said you couldn't keep her warm, I said softly. Who was she? The air changed. His jaw tightened just slightly. My wife. 3 words. Heavy. She died in winter. I felt something shift in my chest. I'm sorry, I whispered. He didn't look broken. He looked controlled. I made a promise after that, he said. I don't ignore things anymore. Not cold rooms, not strange sounds, not people who look tired. My throat felt tight. I had spent years building walls, and this man with a mop and a worn jacket was making me feel exposed. You think something's wrong in this building? I asked. He held my gaze. Yes. No drama, no fear, just certainty. And for the first time in a long time, I believed someone more than I believed myself. But believing him meant digging deeper, and digging deeper meant risking everything. Because if he was right, then someone I trusted was lying to me, and I wasn't sure which possibility scared me more. I didn't sleep that night. I went home, showered, changed, and stared at my ceiling until sunrise. Because if Noah was right, then someone inside my company was hiding something, and I built my entire reputation on knowing everything. That thought burned. By 8 a.m., I was in my office reviewing overnight power logs. Floor 51. Repeated spikes between midnight and 3 a.m. Empty floors shouldn't hum like that. His voice echoed in my head. I hated that it did, because the more I looked, the more I realized he wasn't guessing. He was noticing, and I hadn't. That stung more than it should have. At 10 a.m., I called Tom Reeves, my head of security. Pull access logs for floors 48 through 51, I said calmly. Anything specific? He asked. Yes, anything that doesn't make sense. He gave me a strange look. Executives usually asked for profits, not inconsistencies. That afternoon, the logs came in. Someone had been entering after hours using override codes, not janitorial staff, not scheduled maintenance. Executive clearance. My pulse slowed instead of rising. That's what I do when I'm angry. I become still. That night I stayed again, but this time I wasn't pretending to sleep. I was waiting. Noah arrived at 2:46 a.m., 1 minute earlier than the night before. He stopped when he saw me sitting upright. You're awake, he said quietly. Yes. He nodded once. You checked the power logs. It wasn't a question. How did you know? Because you don't look confused, he said. You look disappointed. That unsettled me. Do I? Yes. Silence. He didn't step closer, didn't push, just waited. That patience, it did something to me. Someone's using executive access after hours, I admitted. And it's not on any official schedule. His jaw tightened slightly. Then you're not the only one who feels the hum. I walked toward him slowly. You knew it wasn't random. I knew it felt wrong. And you still asked security about it? Yes. You weren't afraid? He looked at me for a long second. I've already lost the worst thing I could lose, he said softly. Fear doesn't move me much anymore. That sentence landed harder than it should have, because I realized something uncomfortable. He had nothing to protect except his daughter. I had everything to protect. My title, my board, my reputation. And suddenly, the janitor seemed braver than the CEO. You understand what this could mean? I asked. Yes. If this goes where I think it's going, it destroys people. Then it destroys people who shouldn't be standing, he said calmly. God, the certainty in his voice, the steadiness, it made my pulse skip. Not from attraction, from alignment. For the first time in years, someone wasn't trying to impress me. He was trying to protect something, and I wanted to stand beside that, which was dangerous, because the moment I chose him, I was choosing war, and the man I suspected was someone I trusted with my life. The man I suspected was Marcus, my CFO, my right hand for 8 years, the only person who knew every weakness in this company, and in me. I didn't want it to be him. I needed it not to be him. But the access logs didn't lie. Executive override, repeated entry, floor 51. Marcus had clearance, and he worked late often enough that no one questioned it. I invited him to my office that afternoon. No accusation, no tension, just coffee and spreadsheets. He walked in confident, perfectly tailored, calm. You look tired, he said lightly. I didn't sleep, I replied. He smiled. Merger pressure? Maybe, or maybe betrayal pressure. I've been reviewing power usage in the auxiliary server room, I said casually. His reaction was almost invisible, almost. A flicker in his eyes, gone in half a second. But I've built an empire reading micro-expressions, and that flicker was fear. Facilities issue? He asked. Possibly. Someone's been running heavy processing after hours. That's odd, he said smoothly. Probably an automated backup cycle. Every Tuesday and Thursday. Silence. There it was again, that tiny pause. He recovered quickly. I'll have IT check it. I already did. Now he looked at me, not as a CEO, as a threat, and, he asked, and they found nothing scheduled. The air in the room shifted. Professional. Cold. You think I'm involved in something? He asked carefully. I think someone is. That's when he leaned back. Relaxed. Too relaxed. You've been under a lot of stress, Evelyn. Killing the Titan merger shook the board. You're looking for confirmation you made the right call. It was subtle. Gaslighting. Make me doubt my instincts. Make me question my clarity. It almost worked. Until I remembered a janitor standing in the dark whispering, they think nobody's watching. I don't look for confirmation, I said quietly. I look for truth. His jaw tightened. Be careful, Marcus said softly. You start digging without proof, you damage the company. People lose jobs. Investors panic. You sound worried. I am about you. There it was again. Concern. But unlike Noah's concern, this one felt strategic, calculated, protective of something. Just not me. You don't trust me anymore, Marcus said. The pain in his voice was convincing. That was the worst part. I trust what I see, I replied. And what do you see? A pattern. We held eye contact, a silent war. Then he stood. If you're going to accuse me, do it properly. Otherwise, you're destabilizing everything we built. He walked to the door, paused. You don't want to make an enemy of me, Evelyn. That wasn't a threat. It was a promise. When he left, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, from realization. If Marcus was involved, this wasn't just fraud, it was betrayal. And the only person who noticed first was the man everyone else treated like he didn't exist. And I couldn't stop thinking about the way he looked at me like I wasn't untouchable. About the dangerous comfort of knowing he would never lie to me. And that terrified me more than Marcus ever could. I should have distanced myself from Noah after that. That would have been the professional thing to do. Instead, I went looking for him. It was 1:58 a.m. when I stepped off the elevator onto the 53rd floor. He was already there. Of course he was. He noticed everything. You shouldn't be here again, he said quietly when he saw me. You said that last time. And you didn't listen. I'm not very good at that. A flicker of something crossed his face. Not amusement, something softer. That unsettled me more than anger would have. I confronted Marcus, I said. He stopped wiping the glass. And? He tried to make me doubt myself. Noah nodded slowly. That's what people do when they're cornered. You speak like you've been there. I have. The way he said it told me there was more. But I didn't push. Power usage spiked again tonight, he continued. Stronger than before. How do you know? He pointed upward. You can feel it in the vents. Heat rises different when machines are working hard. I moved closer to him without realizing it. Close enough to feel his body heat. Close enough to smell clean soap and something steady. Grounded. I've spent years reading balance sheets, I murmured. And you're reading air. Air doesn't lie. The simplicity of that hit me harder than it should have. Neither do you, I almost said. But I stopped myself, because that line would change something, and I wasn't ready for that. What happens if you're right, he asked. Then someone I trusted is manipulating financial models. And if I'm wrong? Then I've destroyed my closest partnership over suspicion. Silence stretched. The hum in the building felt louder. You trust him? Noah asked. I did. And now? I don't know. That honesty tasted bitter. Noah stepped closer, not aggressively, just enough that the space between us disappeared. You don't look like someone who doubts easily, he said. I don't. Then trust that. His voice was low, steady, protective. It did something to my breathing. You're not afraid of this, I whispered. I'm afraid of a lot of things, he said, but not of truth. His eyes held mine. And in that moment, the building didn't feel cold. The glass walls didn't feel isolating. It felt like there were only two people in a tower built on secrets, and one of them wasn't afraid of losing everything. You realize, I said softly, if this explodes, you'll be pulled into it. I already am. He wasn't wrong. The moment I believed him, he became part of the fight, and part of me hated that, because the more this grew, the more danger circled us. And I wasn't sure which scared me more, Marcus fighting back, or the way my pulse reacted every time Noah stood too close. The explosion came 2 nights later. Not literal, worse. Financial. I called an emergency audit on floors 48 through 51. No announcement, no warning, just forensic analysts walking in at 11 p.m. with access codes. Marcus didn't know I'd revoked. By 1:30 a.m., they found it, a shadow server, hidden behind construction partitions, running parallel merger projections, inflated numbers, altered risk models. Titan wasn't worth what we were paying. Someone had engineered it to look that way. My stomach didn't drop. It hardened. At 2:10 a.m., Marcus tried to access the system remotely. Access denied. At 2:14, he called me. I let it ring. At 2:17, he showed up in person. He looked composed. Too composed. You went behind my back, he said quietly. I went behind your firewall. His jaw tightened. You're destroying a $3 billion deal. No, I said calmly. You were. Silence. The kind that ends partnerships. You don't understand the pressure we're under, he snapped. Vanguard was circling. Titan needed to look stronger. We needed leverage. So you manipulated the models. We adjusted projections. Everyone does it. Not like this. He stepped closer. Do you know what happens if this collapses? Investors panic. Employees lose bonuses. The board questions your leadership. I'm aware. You can still fix this, he said softly. Bury the audit. Say it was an error. We move forward. That offer felt like poison wrapped in silk. You want me to lie. I want you to protect the company. And there it was. The difference between us. He protected success. I protected truth. You're suspended effective immediately, I said. The word hung heavy between us. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," I replied, "but it won't be this one." Security escorted him out at 3:05 a.m. The building felt different afterward, quieter, like it had been holding its breath. When I stepped back into the corridor, Noah was there. He didn't ask. He didn't need to. "It was him," he said. "Yes." He nodded once, not triumphant, not satisfied, just steady. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "For what?" "For the part where this hurts." God, that almost broke me. "It does," I admitted. He stepped closer, not touching, but close enough to anchor me. "You did the right thing." "You don't know that." "I do."
How?
"Because you look like someone who chose pain over comfort." His eyes searched mine, and suddenly I wasn't the CEO. I was just a woman who had lost someone she trusted. "You'll have enemies now," he added quietly. "I already did. But now they know you're willing to burn things down." "And that scares you?" "No," he said. "What scares you?" "That you'll try to carry it alone." The honesty in his voice shook me. I didn't realize how badly I wanted someone beside me until he said that. And that was dangerous. Because I wasn't just fighting a fraud anymore. I was fighting the pull toward a man who saw me when I was breaking, and I didn't know which battle would cost me more. The board meeting was brutal. I stood at the head of the table while 17 men and women stared at me like I had detonated a bomb in the middle of their retirement plans. "Do you understand what you've done?" Patricia asked coldly. "Yes." "You suspended your CFO based on an internal audit conducted in secret." "Yes." "You collapsed the Titan merger." "Yes." My voice didn't shake, but inside, I was bleeding. They argued numbers, stock drops, market reactions, reputation damage. Not one of them said the word fraud first. I did. "He altered financial projections to inflate valuation," I said clearly. "That's not strategy. That's deception." "And you're certain?" Robert asked carefully. "I am." "And if you're wrong?" That question sliced deeper than they realized. If I was wrong, I had destroyed everything. I felt it then, the weight of being alone at the top, until I wasn't. "He's not wrong." Every head turned. Noah stood in the doorway, still in his night uniform, still invisible to most of them. "What is he doing here?" Patricia snapped. "I asked him to attend," I said calmly. "He's a janitor." "He's the reason we found the fraud." Murmurs filled the room. Noah didn't look intimidated. He looked steady. "You all sit above this building," he said quietly. "But I walk through it when it's quiet. I hear things you don't. Systems running when they shouldn't. Doors opening when no one's scheduled. Heat rising where it shouldn't." "This isn't about heat," Patricia said sharply. "It is," he replied. "Because heat means energy. Energy means movement. And movement means someone is doing something they don't want noticed." Silence. He turned slightly toward the board. "I'm not educated like you. I don't speak your language. But I know when something feels wrong, and I've learned the hard way that ignoring that feeling costs more than facing it." My chest tightened. He wasn't defending me. He was defending truth. Robert leaned back slowly. "You're asking us to trust instinct over data?" "No," Noah said. "I'm asking you to look at the data honestly instead of protecting who it points to." That landed hard. Patricia's jaw tightened. "You're out of line." "Maybe," he said calmly. "But if you'd listened to someone out of line before, you wouldn't be here now." I felt my pulse spike. Not from fear, from something warmer, something dangerous. Pride, because he wasn't trying to impress them. He was protecting me. And when the vote finally came, 9-8, Marcus was formally terminated. Full investigation launched. The room emptied slowly. The war wasn't over. But I wasn't alone anymore. When the doors closed behind the last board member, I turned to Noah. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." "Why?" He held my gaze. "Because you stood alone for the truth." His voice dropped, and I don't let people stand alone anymore. The air between us shifted. Heavy. Charged. Charged. I stepped closer without thinking. "That's a dangerous promise," I whispered. "So is caring about someone you work with." My breath caught. He had noticed that too. Of course he had. And suddenly, this wasn't just about fraud. It was about the line we were about to cross. And whether either of us was strong enough to stop. I should have stepped back. That would have been the smart thing. Instead, I stayed where I was. Too close. Close enough to feel the heat of him. Close enough to forget the glass walls. "You shouldn't say things like that," I whispered. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Because I'm your boss. And lines matter." His eyes didn't move from mine. "So do people." That hit deeper than it should have. For years, I'd convinced myself that keeping distance was strength, that control meant isolation. But standing there with him, isolation felt like weakness. You defended me in that room, I said softly. I defended what was right. You didn't hesitate. He shook his head. I watched you take the hit alone. I'm not built for that anymore. The honesty in his voice made my chest tighten. You think this is over? He asked. No. Then they'll come for you. I know. Good, he said calmly. Because I'm not going anywhere. The certainty in that promise was terrifying, because this time, it wasn't about his wife or the building. It was about me. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Security alert. Unauthorized access attempt. Floor 51. Again, we both turned toward the hallway at the same time. You suspended him, Noah said. I did. Then someone else has keys. That realization chilled me. Marcus wasn't acting alone. I grabbed my coat. Stay here, I ordered. He didn't move. No, this isn't your fight. It became my fight the moment I noticed. I hesitated. Every instinct told me to protect him, but he stepped closer. Evelyn, you don't get to carry this alone. My name in his mouth changed something. It wasn't formal. It wasn't distant. It was personal, and I let him follow me. The elevator ride to 51 was silent, tense, charged. The doors opened to darkness. Too dark. Backup lighting only. And then, movement. A shadow near the mechanical room. Someone was still trying to wipe the servers, erase evidence. Before I could react, Noah moved. Fast, not reckless, focused. Hey, he shouted. The figure bolted. I ran after them, heels abandoned somewhere behind me. The hallway echoed with footsteps. And then, a door slammed. Emergency stairwell. Locked from inside. Noah pounded on it. They're still here, he said, breathing hard. Sirens began wailing downstairs. Security responding. I leaned against the wall, heart racing. This wasn't just fraud. It was bigger, deeper, more desperate than I imagined. Noah looked at me, eyes steady even in the chaos. You were right to dig. And you were right to notice. For a second, in the flashing emergency lights, everything else disappeared. Board votes, stock prices, titles. It was just us, standing in the dark, choosing not to look away. But as security flooded the floor and radios crackled with orders, one thought settled heavy in my chest. If Marcus wasn't alone, then someone inside this building still believed they could silence us. And next time, they might not run,